What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some of the free marketing that they've been getting and just generally something that they should really consider in doing that might resolve their whole mentality associated to retail investors. So I want to go over all the things that you need to know, but first make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So when it comes to Lucid, obviously, as I've mentioned, I've been covering them for a very long time. There's been things that they've done on their social media that was more positioned towards celebrities. So I've even brought up like 2 days ago how Lucid, for whatever reason, is pointing out how just animals and dogs fit well with gravities and airs. It just doesn't logically make sense. Back in 2022, their focal point was more celebrities. I know a lot of big names did buy it, so they kind of just took pictures in that capacity, and that in among itself would be huge, right? And you've really seen them pivot away from that. I don't know if that's more from a legal standpoint or not, but there was one thing that was just posted by Rocco, and so ultimately Snoop Dogg is in a Gravity, and it's nothing crazy. It's not like hyping up Lucid. I'm not gonna have the audio because he's just singing, but at the end of the day, this is probably better marketing than anything. And I know I might get some hate for this. I think Snoop Dogg would be a better brand ambassador than that 𝗪𝗧𝗡 individual. Because even like I've brought up, 𝗪𝗧𝗡's fan pages just say, hey, beautiful vehicle, can't afford it. So it clearly Lucid just doesn't have the right target audience. Whereas someone maybe like Snoop Dogg and other celebrities, they might have a potential better reach. So interesting type of turn of events. I don't think anyone would have anticipated Snoop Dogg to be in a Gravity, but yeah, it is what it is. So pretty cool free marketing if you ask me. But that does beg the question on what Lucid is doing. And there was one thing that I did bring up way back in 2022. Like I said, I've been covering Lucid for a while, originally under Financial Journey. Then I decided to kind of branch off and do this own dedicated Lucid channel. But way back in November 17th, 2022, I did put down saying that there was a huge opportunity. And even back then, a lot of retail investors, for the most part, have been very emotional, and I think that's why you have a lot more stocks that have a high presence of retail. It's a lot more volatile, and probably at the same time that's why shorts target those stocks initially. But nonetheless, though, with Mark's most recent comment, as well as the CFO kind of reconfirming that during the most recent earnings, it shows that they want to pivot towards more institutions. In their mind, not only will that add more stability, in theory, the stock price could go higher. So it's kind of, in my opinion, a slap in the face. But what I did propose way back in 2022 is something that I still do feel is feasible given the circumstances, and it would be very out of the box, but it could potentially work. So for those of you that, let's say, have 5,000 shares, just as an example, and one way to add a certain level of stability, similar to what Lucid's trying to target, is add incentives to retail investors that hold long term. So for instance, if one of you has 5,000 shares as an example, and you want to buy a Lucid vehicle, whether it be Air, Gravity, midsize, or whatever else, they could kind of consider through, I don't know what kind of validation process, but if you held your shares for, let's say, 1-2 years, you would get a certain dollar value off of a Lucid. So not only would that add stability to the actual stock price, because you'd have less retail essentially selling, which in Mark's mind is partially the problem, but you'd have more stability plus more sales. And we've seen Lucid giving up to $30,000 in just incentives. And so they're willing to do these types of discounts. So for those of you that, like I said, have 5,000, 10,000 shares, or even 200 shares, it doesn't really matter. they would give you, let's say, $200 off. Or potentially, if you had like, let's say 10,000 and you held it for 1 year, then you'd get maybe 10,000 or even half of that off. So again, I think that would help overall sales, help stabilize the stock price, and it's hopefully something that Lucid should really consider. Even way back in 2022, when the stock price way back then was 10 times that, it was somewhat in free fall, as you can kind of see. That is something that could have really eliminated all of this, because yes, some retail investors and institutions did sell out for justified causes, but technically, I'm sure if they had certain types of programs in place, then it wouldn't have been where it is now. It might be a little bit higher, right? Because institutions also might be willing to buy, let's say, fleets. And that's something that Lucid is trying to branch out in Europe. I think they launched a actual position for that, and more of a side part in Germany. So it looks like they want to try to start targeting fleet sales. And so again, coming from an institutional standpoint, that also could benefit. Let's say BlackRock did hold 1 million shares and they plan on buying some vehicles. Well, might as well. Win-win for them. So at the end of the day, I think it's something that they definitely do need to consider, especially with the whole reverse stock split coming right around the corner. A lot of people really unsure on what could happen. Some people are saying that it's going to spike to 30. Some people are saying it's going to go lower. As I've mentioned in my video yesterday, I do feel 10% kind of being cut is a little bit more realistic, but what happens from there, anyone's guess. But if they do have programs like this in place, then it again will add a little bit more stability and hopefully keep Lucid stock price from plummeting. So let me know your thoughts on kind of the free marketing that Snoop Dogg is giving Lucid, as well as that potential idea about incentivizing, I guess, sales and for retail investors to kind of hold their position. It would be very out of the box type of thinking, first of its kind, but at the same time, we do see a lot of other stocks that are kind of stuck in an interesting predicament, no different than Lucid. They do these out of box types of kind of plans, right? GNS is a big one where they do spin-offs, try to just get shorts off their back. This one as well might de-incentivize shorting, but again, that's a little bit far-fetched to kind of start to assume. But let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Hopefully everyone's having a good long weekend. One final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.